Welcome to the Challenges of Change, the podcast where we explore the transformative journey towards self-improvement and personal growth. I'm your host, Laura, a mindset coach in the health and fitness industry, here to guide you through the hurdles that life throws at you. In each episode, we'll delve into practical strategies and insightful discussions to help you manage stress, regulate your emotions, upgrade your mindset, and ultimately reclaim your sense of worth. I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey of change, challenges, and self-discovery. And we are back for another episode of the Challenges of Change. And you know her, you love her. Jess is here with me, joining the show. Say hi.
Hi.
And I think Jess actually brought this topic to us, and it is so aligned for so many different reasons. But before I even tell you what it is, I'm going to tell you why it's aligned, which is probably not going to make sense, but we're going to do it anyways. I don't even know if I told you this, but I got the opportunity to go to a Pink concert on Monday.
Yeah.
And I know you love music and you go to concerts all the time, and I love music.
Mm-hmm. She puts on a good show, though. I mean, exceptional entertainer.
Oh my God, yes. So I love music, but I've never been one to like follow an artist specifically. So I enjoy live music, but like concerts themselves aren't always my favorite. Not only are they expensive, but like if you don't know the music, sometimes it's like womp womp. But I'd heard such amazing things about her performance that I was like, well, I want to see that. Just like it's like Cirque du Soleil, and she delivered. But
Yeah.
I love that I kind of got to go into it with such an unexpected understanding of like what it would be, because I was just looking forward to her like flipping around and seeing what that was about, and it definitely delivered. But her vocal range is freaking extraordinary, and honestly, I don't even think the radio does it service. Like I've been listening to her music before and after, and I'm like, it is so much better in person. But my favorite part is at the end of the concert, I just wanted to grab a beer with her. Like she is so authentic and so genuine. And it was exactly what I needed. And I think it really illustrates kind of what we're talking about or about to talk about, which is rediscovering yourself. And I say it like that because one of the things Pink stands for, and even what she said in the concert, is like, she's not going to be what people tell her to be, or she's not going to be put in a box. And there's something about witnessing that energy in such a profound way that is just levitating.
Absolutely. So authenticity is the number one thing I think of when I think of rediscovering yourself. And why this is important for me and my clients is a lot of us have lost ourselves and we aren't living that authentic life. And we kind of sense something is missing.
Yeah. And I think like one of the hard aspects to even go with that is, how do you even recognize when you are being authentic or not being authentic? Right? Like I remember before I kind of woke up and became a coach, I thought I was being authentic, and there are variants of it for sure. Like if I believed in something, I was very, very passionate about it. But when it came to me, my needs, what made me happy, where people disrespected me, like I was really good at advocating for others. I was very strong in like certain principles about like health and kindness and social justice. But like, you want to treat me like shit? Okay. And like, that's not authentic to me.
Yeah.
But I do think it illustrates a really important lesson that I learned in the process of rediscovering myself. And I'm curious if you would either phrase it the same way or if you even experience it yourself, which is something I've noticed with like all my clients. I experience it. I get this when I go do like conferences and speaking events. I have people raise their hands if they are the hardest on themselves than anyone else in their lives. And
Yeah.
notoriously, everyone's hand goes up. So in a weird way, we've learned to treat ourselves the worst of any human being in our lives. So our radar for what we're willing to accept from others matches how we treat ourselves. It was
Mm-hmm.
kind of around that time of like the hashtag self-love was out there, and I was like, what is this stuff? It felt a little like wooey to me,
Mm-hmm.
but now I get it, that that line, that how you treat yourself is what you're going to end up tolerating from others. So when it comes to rediscovering yourself and being your authentic self, like that was a really hard aspect for me because I was just so scared to not be loved and not be accepted
Yeah.
for who I am. And like that's why a lot of people do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I've learned is that wasn't love.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you bring up a good question. Like, how do you recognize when you're being inauthentic? Because I'll tell you, I remember you think that's you. You think the
Yeah.
giving and the sharing and the loving and everything like that is super authentic you. And you don't know anything else. That's what you've always known. That's
Mm-hmm.
like a key thing that my clients always say. Well, it's what I've always known.
Right, right.
So, how about this? Burnout is an
Ooh.
indicator, right? So, all of that giving and everything like that, if your tank is empty and you don't have anything left to give, that's not authenticity
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
because you're taking more than you have.
And it means you're like giving for an alternative reason too. Like part of it can definitely be authentic, but, and I know people in the coaching realm, like you and I have talked about this offline before, where we love helping our clients and it's so like we're flying when we get to do it. So it's so high, but it does
Yeah.
drain us. And
Yes.
that was a
Yeah.
balance that I think we both discussed in the early days of our career, like having to find the right amount of clients to, show up and serve, but be able to do that from a full cup, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I like where
Um,
you went though. The how do you recognize when you're being authentic with a sign, one of them being burnout. I think that
Burnout.
that's a
Yeah.
hard one.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know your opinion on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is fear to speak up for yourself.
Oh my gosh, 100% right there. 100%. And because you and I have been working on that one together because of my fear of putting my voice out there.
And yet here we are live on a podcast.
Wait, I say this on the podcast.
Hey, you saw it. Good job. I didn't even have to point it out to you. But yes, I think like the only way to really figure out who you are authentically is to get to know yourself. Like that's why this is rediscovering yourself. I think part of
Mm-hmm.
that journey is you're gonna find certain things that are like, yeah, that's me. And then you're gonna find something like, okay, there's a twinge of me in there, but that's a little blended and it needs to be upgraded to be like full me. Right?
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so hard too, because there are bits of you in there,
Yeah.
but it's a combination of the you that you brought, and then on top of it is all the conditioning, all the societal judgment,
Yeah.
right, that comes
Let's go
down.
there. Let's go to that place. Because I think when we were first talking about like what happens, like why do we even have to look at are we being authentic? Like why aren't we just living in authenticity? And you brought up our role self. What does that mean for those who don't know?
Well, the role that we're playing, right? So who you are isn't a mother or a woman or a whatever.
Right.
Those are just roles that you play. And these roles have assignments, right? Your culture and society will tell you, you're a woman, this is the role that you play.
Yeah.
You're a wife, this is the role that you play.
Right.
You're a mother, this is the role that you play.
Mm-hmm.
And then go back into our initial family systems, and we all played a role in that family too.
Amen.
Right? You could be the oldest, you could be the baby, you could be the athletic one, you could be the super smart one, right?
Yeah.
So we all have roles to play in that arena too. So those roles take over and they start to layer on top of who we actually are. But then in order to get that love, safety, and belonging that we all need, we're going to start switching out parts of us for the parts that get the most
love, safety, and belonging.
Love, safety, and belonging. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And
right. So it's not something that we're doing to ourselves intentionally. No. We're not doing it to be mean to ourselves. We're doing it out of survival.
It is adaptive and completely unconscious. Like that's why we have to question, are we even being our authentic self? And this isn't just for women too. Like I've heard this from male people in my lives of like what it means to be a man, to be a provider. And like one of my least favorite, and I think this is upgrading, like narratives around like men specifically is like men aren't emotional, which is like if you understand the brain, which you and I both understand the brain, that is the silliest thing I've ever heard.
It's so stupid.
Like every freaking human being has a limbic system. It just is like
right.
People don't know how to handle emotions, so they say this is what it means. They shame women. They tell men they're not being manly, aka shame. But I'm hoping that narrative is actually shifting because I have seen a lot more men being vulnerable. And let me tell you, big fan over here, not only like to see some of the beauty that men can hold, but also to like see them connecting in a more meaningful way with life, which I think is what all us human beings, no matter how you identify in a gender aspect, like that's all we want. So like
we deserve it.
Yeah. So there are multiple roles though, and that was one of, not to segue because I squirreled for a moment, my bad, but there's multiple roles we carry, to your point. Like maybe you have the role of a mother, but let's break that one down because that is chef, that's housekeeper, that's event coordinator, that's the therapist / emotional regulator of the house. Like there's a lot of different
chauffeur
in that. And then when you go with friends, you might be playing all of those roles as mom, but then when you're with friends and different groups of friends, maybe you're the adventurer, maybe you're the planner, right? And we kind of become versions of ourselves versus just being ourselves and allowing ourselves to enjoy where we are when we are.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep making this big deal about let's take the judgment out of it. So no judgment there. We all do this out of survival, but also we make tiny choices all throughout our lives every single day. And in any one scenario, you may choose to wear your mask because it's just easier. You just don't have time. Okay, I'll be this person for you. Can you please go away now so I can get on with the rest of my life? So we make these tiny little decisions, and once they all start building up, and we don't even see them becoming a part of who we are regularly. Me changing who I am in this scenario makes this aspect of my life much easier. I could do it the hard way and stay authentic, but this isn't that important to me.
Right. And I think the hardest part is like some of it that's so, what's the word? Like it is subconscious, but like how we protect ourselves. Like that's the whole reason why we do this, right?
Right.
Like, you're familiar with Gabor Mate's work, correct?
You'll have to expand on it a little bit for me.
So I like his work for a multitude of different reasons, but one of the things he talks about in his book, The Myth of Normal, it might be Breaking the Myth of Normal, something like that. He is one of 3 boys, and he was born in Europe during World War II, and his mom had to give him up within the first 6 weeks of having him because they were Jewish. So naturally, he has this giant wound, even though he's an adult man now. His brother, born after the liberation, he has one temperament. And then the third brother was born when they had just moved to Canada to escape, the residual impact of Nazi Germany. And what's interesting and what he talks about is the personalities of the different boys, how he can correlate it with the kind of nurturing aspect, but also he sees how him and his youngest brother are similar, largely because of the distress that they were born into, and how his younger brother picked up a separate role from his middle brother and himself, because those two were already filling the planner, the chaos role. So then he just kind of came in and filled whatever space was there. And in a weird way, like when I go off into la la land of just like, what's happening in my brain today? I always wonder, like, if, because I have an older brother,
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't have an older sibling, would my role be the same role? Like, would how I understand myself, would my authentic being still be the same being? And I mean, there's no way to like really tell that. And quite frankly, I like who I am, so I'm cool with it.
Well, there's lots of studies on it though, so if you did want to read up on it on birth order, it is actually really interesting. But one of the theories that has come down that I've distilled in my head is that no, you wouldn't be playing the same roles, because when you were born, you would have had more options for roles to take that your brother had already claimed as his own. So
Right.
you're not going to take his role.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the oldest kind of gets a default role
Yeah.
because they're dealing with very immature new parents. And so they have their own shit to deal with. And
Yeah.
so their role kind of gets developed, kind of co-authored for them.
Yeah.
So then when you came along, you're like, well, I can't have that role. And so you had the ability to choose what was left.
Yeah. So as you're listening to us just kind of pinball around about all the different things that impact how you understand yourself, you can even think about, your birth order, your family, your parents, your siblings, and I think one of the key ways that you can understand maybe where you are authentic and are not is in thinking through moments of your childhood and lived experience to reflect on, who did I need to be in that house to be okay, to feel safe? And is that still a coping mechanism, or does that feel like the person I want to be?
Right. Does it represent who I am from the inside?
Right. So like,
or is it how I survived?
I recognize similarities. Remember we talked about like kind of noticing things and being like, oh, there's a blend here, but I could upgrade this to be like fully me. I recognize that part of the role I played was the peacekeeper.
Yep.
And when I transfer that to like coaching or friendships or different relationships, I see how the peacekeeper wasn't always what was needed in external relationships, because sometimes it minimized people's emotions because I wasn't okay with them having emotions. My family dynamic, that was what worked. And I had to recognize,
and it was needed, right?
100%. And I was like, oh, okay, like that was kind of the role I played, and it worked, and it created a bunch of beautiful memories. I mean, I'm truly, truly blessed to have the family I have. And I had to recognize within myself, like, if I have friendships, and I had friends who were considerate enough to tell me, like, when I was trying to keep the peace, I wasn't showing up as the friend I wanted to be. And I'm really, really grateful for those people who spoke up to me about that, because it gave me the opportunity to learn how to be like, to serve and show up as a person I wanted to be. Like, I want to hold space for people's emotions.
Yeah.
And how I learned to do that in my family worked, and that was great. And that's a huge skill that is very like, I love it. And I still am learning, if I'm being frank. There are certain friendships I like, very habitual. I understand what they need from me, but then there's other people who need a variety of things. And the simplest way is just to ask, but sometimes they don't know. And like, it's never a perfect system. But my point being, like, that was authentic, but it was like a blended, and I had to unblend to become more authentic in relationships beyond just my family. Does that make sense?
It does. And I honestly, like, the whole time I'm like, oh, I know this is about rediscovering yourself, but now I want to talk about that entire situation and dive into it, because it was like, oh, it just piqued my interest. Because there was so much juiciness in there that we could break down and like really show people the beauty of that having that family dynamic, and then you get the friend dynamic, and it shows you what's going on in your life. But you also said something really cool. I don't know. What do you want? Well, I don't know. That is another clue that we're not being authentic. I have no idea what I want. How many in our audience right now, be honest, have been to a place in their life where they're like, well, what do I want to do? Or what do you want to eat? Or what do I want here? Who am I?
No.
I don't know. I don't know.
I really have that in my journal right now.
Right. Just becoming a coach. I had no idea a coach was a thing.
Me
I
either.
didn't know that. You know what I did? I did what my grandparents and my parents thought would be the best thing for me, which is go and get a science degree from an accredited university, and I worked in the United States labs, and I did event coordinating. I've done all these things, and I could be very, very good at each and every one of them. But inevitably, what I discovered is that none of them were me, right? I didn't want to work in a science laboratory. That was super boring. The only time I got to talk to people was when I had a visiting biologist come in to learn my RNA extraction, right? So, like, boring. I like talking to people.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, she's super smart in case you didn't notice. But to your point, that made me think of a Carl Jung quote. If the path before you is clear, you're probably on someone else's path. And that, like, I know we talk about like, all right, we're gonna bring this all together because I recognize, and I know you recognize we're a bit pinballing, and sorry, audience, but I mean that's why we're here.
Right.
But I want to bring it all together because we talk about blueprints of like, we don't know. And we are adapting throughout life to try and ensure love, safety, and belonging. And then once we get our, belief system up there and running, we're just recreating circumstances to confirm our beliefs, both the good ones and the bad ones, right? Or the limited ones, I should say.
Right.
So like that is how we are conditioned to be who we are. So if we're talking about rediscovering, yes, it feels like we've been pinballing, but let me put those pinballs in a line here for a second.
Yeah, let's do it.
Part of it is recognizing the roles you take on. You can look at your birth order. You can look at how you show up in different friend groups. You can look at who you are when you're by yourself. Who are you safe to be? What do you wish you could be in front of people? All of these are going to be clues about understanding like how you understand yourself, right?
Right. So so this aspect, this chunk that you're describing right now is we're still in how do we discover that we're being inauthentic?
Correct.
And this is more of like this is that part of the journey is understanding why.
Yeah.
So why could we get to this place where we're not being ourselves?
Pause. I think I know the answer, but I want the audience to know the answer. Why is it important for us to understand, like, yes, recognize we're being authentic or inauthentic, but why is it important for us to learn why we were being that way?
Because of that judgment piece.
Right.
For me, anyway, the reason I want my clients to know the why behind it is because I feel like our initial, at least for me and my clients, our initial reaction to finding out something about ourselves is to judge it.
Right.
So when we don't know why we're like that, it's really easy to be like, well, what a poser piece of crap I am.
Right. So it's ultimately so we can have more compassion for ourselves rather than judgment, right?
Yeah.
But like that's why I wanted to pause you because, okay, I can totally like I hear like an older version of my head being like, okay, get to the point. Like, all right, this is how I recognize my authentic self. I don't care why I was being authentic, but you need to. Because if you don't, you're likely just repeating a limiting belief. Mm-hmm. But also it is like change really does require acceptance and compassion.
And that self-awareness piece, right, too. So like understanding how you got there is also really good too, because when you're about to go on this journey, you're about to recognize that becoming yourself isn't the easiest thing in the world. It's not like flipping a switch or changing the channel.
No, it's hard, and man, is it worth it. And it's the greatest journey I've ever freaking taken. But, it reminds me of something I heard on another podcast. He said, we want our kids to be resilient, but we fix their problems for them. We want our kids to be patient, but we give them what they want when they ask for it. How do we expect our kids to build these skills if we don't give them the life circumstances to practice them? And then he paused. And he said, the same is true for adults. So to your point, recognize how you're being inauthentic, understand why, to have the compassion. And yes, the journey, the next step, which is just one foot in front of the next until the next one goes and then the next one goes. It's not looking at the mountain, but the only way to break some of the protective conditioning of being inauthentic is to brave the wilderness of learning to gain the experience of being authentic in hard moments sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, it isn't always easy. You do get to choose when, but understand like that struggle serves a really important purpose that will create that evidence and that neurochemistry in your brain so then you can be more authentic.
Yes, yes, and more yes. So
All
we
the
want to be authentic. Well, how do we do that? How do we do it?
I'll tell you how I like to do it because I like the one foot in front of the next thing. I really, really do. I think if we look at everything as, oh my God, it's going to take so much time or it's going to be so big that that can just be a really good way to move us into inaction. So
Oh,
I,
hell yeah. I definitely make molehills into mountains.
yes, that's the thing. Um, I like to do it as I notice it. So rather than thinking of it as like a giant project I have to do, and this is how I encourage my clients to do it too, because like we live in a very like productivity driven doing environment. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't feel like they have space, and yet they're listening to us talk about like, okay, here's some tough stuff that you get to do, and on the other side, it's totally worth it, but it's going to suck for a while. Go get them. Like that sounds not. I don't want that. If I'm
No,
listening to them,
I don't want that. I
I
love
don't want
it.
it. So
Oh,
like to work within their capacity, like you're getting signals around this all day, every day. You're not going to capture all of them, and you don't need to capture all of them. But part of
mm,
it is just learning as you go. When you have
yep.
capacity, you'll notice something. You'll notice feeling inauthentic. You'll hear something from a friend. You'll listen to a podcast. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Wink, wink.
And it'll ping something for you. And it can give you a little bit of time to be like, okay, what role am I playing? Why didn't I speak up for myself? And just get curious. To your point, judgment isn't going to help you. If you're going to judge yourself, don't do this. Honestly,
Yeah.
you're going to waste your time if you're just going to judge yourself here. It needs to come through curiosity because curiosity is so aligned with authenticity.
So yeah, I love your answer because it's like the most authentic way to become authentic.
How convenient.
You just fell right into that.
I mean,
And it
it was the way
works.
that worked for me at least. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think but here I would also here's a couple of like little key things in case like that seems you're like I don't know what do I do? Like if you're getting in your own head about that, here are a few more things like just said in a different way.
yeah.
So one way of reconnecting with who you are um well, there's like there's some exercises. I'm sure you and I can rattle some off. Journaling, meditation.
Walking in nature without any devices, my new fave, by the way.
Oh, that's a good one. Nature. Um, let me think.
Music or just sound.
Music is a huge one, I think. And
Art.
then, um, so some of the exercises I do, right? So I'm helping my clients rediscover themselves step by step throughout the program, even though we're working on their very specific things. My little underlying fun little exercises. So tapping into those core values. When's the last time you even asked yourself what your values and priorities are? Like values. Those are your North Star. Your values are going to be different than everybody else's. And when you're sitting there with yourself doing a values exercise, there's no one over your shoulder who's going to judge the values you pick. So come from the heart. Figure out what your values are. What's most important to you? What resonates with you? And when I say resonate, how do you feel resonation? Like when something resonates with you, what would you say?
I feel well, okay, so this is a little challenging without like a specific modality. Like if it's music, I feel like I literally feel like pulled to the center of my body. As weird as that is, as like an
Yeah, I love that you
explanation.
went with the physical.
Um, well, that's one of the things that I've really learned in like my rediscovery journey is how limited language is in
Mm-hmm.
explaining what my experience is. And so, for instance, I might call that alignment, like being pulled to the center of my body might be labeled alignment. But what if someone else labels alignment and experiences it in a different way? Again, it's about what resonates with you, but like for me, I like when I listen to certain music or songs or just beats, I like it's never about the words. It's really about like the like percussions predominantly, and I can
Yeah,
feel
the
it in
wavelength.
like my soul. I can feel it in my heartbeat. I can feel my heartbeat change with it. Um, I access lightness through like my shoulders. I feel more energized. And my favorite part of it is when something resonates with me, I get into like my creative, curious, like I call it my wonder phase of like, and then I just let the balls in my head go crazy. Trust me, guys, you don't want to be in this noggin. It is a little, but it's fun for me.
Yeah.
Um, but that when something resonates, it allows me to feel alignment. It really does.
Yeah. I love alignment. Your word alignment, I think is a good one. I like, because I'm trying to sit here and think of the words, and I think you're right. Words can't really point to it or can't really express it, but it can point to it. So for me, it's more of like I'm a visualizer. So in me, it's like clicking into place. It's like falling right into line, alignment,
Mm-hmm.
and feeling good or feeling right. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like almost like an essence that comes in. It's almost like and I might even have like an emotional reaction like joy or intrigue, you know what I mean? Or like feel this like interest in something or pulled towards it.
Okay, I like this because I don't know if you recognize this with your clients, but my clients totally do this. Most people tend to know more of like what they don't want and what they don't like more than like what they do want and what they do like, right?
Mm-hmm.
You listen to what Jess and I have been saying, like we feel creative, curious, wonder, lightness, energized, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
not hearing like anxious, worry, nervous, scared, like
Doubtful.
right. Like, and there's nothing wrong with those emotional states. There's nothing wrong. They all serve a purpose. But if we're talking about how do you recognize when something resonates with you? How do you recognize like this is me authentically? This feels right.
Mm-hmm.
These are kind of the energies you're going to recognize more so than the doubt, fear,
Yeah.
nervousness, etc. There are naturally asterisks, especially when you get other people in the ring with you. But
Mm-hmm.
just to start, focus on it when you're with you. Because
Yeah.
this is one of the things as we get ready to close up, I wanted to address because I think this was my biggest challenge when I think about it is how afraid people are to actually look inside themselves. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
people like I can totally imagine some of our listeners being like, this sounds dandy, but like the version of myself I know is the one that's the hardest on myself, the one that's the most judgmental, the one that shames me, right? That's what we're used to. So, how do we feel courageous enough, find the bravery to actually explore like what's within there? And the way I have thought about it, the way I talk about it, what I learned is like that experience of ourselves isn't authentic, ironically. It's the
Yeah.
shadow. Like I always say, it's like a shadow of a cockroach because I don't like cockroaches, but it looks really, really, really big. But once you get in there and you can see and accept your like humanity, which was like a huge aspect for me, I think when you start asking yourself questions, like not rhetorical ones, not through judgment. Again, if you're going to be judgmental, don't do it. You're going to waste your time. And we don't only have so much time. But
Yeah.
being curious of like, okay, why am I so afraid to look within?
Yeah. And I think, the short answer, obviously the long answer is going to be your personal unique answer.
Right,
The short answer is that it's hard to look within because the reason that stuff is buried is because it was not accepted.
right.
We call it either external expectations or societal expectations or our family's expectations of us,
Mhm.
are the reasons that it's not out and about and you're not being you to this day.
Right.
So those aspects of yourself had to have been deemed bad, wrong, inappropriate, terrible.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard
But
because, but they're not. They're not.
right. And I think that's the point. Like these things that we might not, that others might not love about us, you
Mhm.
might love as part of the essence of who you are. So to bring this thing full circle, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Pink. Do you remember I started this podcast talking about the fact that I got to go to her concert, and one of my favorite aspects of it is she has had the same pianist for 24 years. And apparently they have this bet every single show where he just starts playing any one of her songs, but that's not on her set list. And they see if she can get it right and like know what it is. If she gets it right, she gets candy. If she doesn't, he gets the candy. And
Yeah.
so she got it right at the show. So she looked through the different pieces of candy and took a piece of candy and then started throwing out the other ones to different people in the show. And she made the comment that I thought was so funny. Just so you guys know, I'm not sponsored by whatever candy it was. Sure,
Hmm.
you know me. I can't keep my mouth shut, but that's why you're here. And then she like threw
Hmm.
out whatever the piece of candy was. And I loved it as such a subtle, simple, like authentic moment because she doesn't always get sponsorships because she's going to be real and true to who she is. And yes, it is scary to look within ourselves and ask ourselves these questions because we did interpret. We learned that we wouldn't get love, safety, and belonging from our environment at a very young age. But most of you are adults. You're still withholding that love, safety, and belonging because someone else told you to, but you don't
Hmm.
have to. And I think if you can get curious and kind of look at the parts of you that maybe aren't your favorite and understand what they are, where they came from, and like how you can evolve them. They're not meant to be shame or judge. They were very protective and they helped you survive. You
Yeah.
actually start healing, being you through love and acceptance.
That's right. So, if we're going to be wrapping this up, then if I had a message that I wanted to send out
Yeah.
to all of our listeners, it would be if you are looking for that piece, if you've been doing some things and you've been feeling like maybe a lack of meaning or a lack of fulfillment or anything like that, and you're looking to, or you've been experiencing burnout and you're just not sure what it is you're doing wrong, right? And you are looking for more meaning, more joy, redefining what success means to you, building your resilience, unlocking your creativity, improving your relationships, whatever it is that you might have on your docket. And you are interested in learning some more tips, tricks, and ways of unlocking this hidden potential within you and rediscovering yourself and becoming your authentic self so that you can just blow the world away with what you are meant to be here to do, then I highly, highly suggest you reach out. Laura here has an amazing company called Change by Challenge, and she's got a team of coaches that work with her. We are an army of hearts. We are ready, standing ready to guide you, to help you, to mentor you, and to just love you into that authentic version of yourself. So please, 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 if it's something that's interesting you, do it. I highly recommend it. It is one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Oh, very well said. I'll second that, especially in like the best decision I made, even though I didn't know I was making it.
I know.
I didn't understand
Don't
it.
just wander into it like I did.
I mean, you
Let's be more
can,
intentional.
you
You can.
can,
It'll work. It takes years.
but I think all of it is like, we get one life, right? And
And it is a gift.
but are we using it as a gift or are we just living scared because someone told us this wasn't okay when we were kids in a world that doesn't even exist anymore? I mean, when we were kids, internet didn't exist, cell phones don't exist. The world is very freaking different. Like what's real, what people believe, like
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah,
time
just imagine you get to the end of it and your creator's like, so what did you do with that
to
gift I
do.
gave you?
How
And you're
was
like,
life?
oh, I wasted it and I gave it to everybody else.
Yeah, so I guess here's my last message. Yes to everything Jess said. I love my army of hearts ready to help because it is, I mean, really living my like mission and purpose as like a human being, even outside my business, which is like super cool. Um, And if you aren't ready to like book a call, I'll put the link to join the newsletter below as well. And we definitely, send out tips there, like meet yourself where you're at. But this is my closing message. Um, at the end of the day, when you're really tired, one of the things I hear from clients all the time is like, I just don't want to take care of it. I just don't have the energy to, right? But if a friend needed you, if your kid needed you, if your partner needed you, somehow, somewhere, you'd find the energy. You'd figure out how to show up and fight for them. How do you expect to set yourself free if you're the first person always throwing in the flag on yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, all those people deserve that love that you give them. And so do you, my darling.
So remember, if you raise that bar of what you're willing to tolerate to align with your heart, align with your authentic self, you're not taking the love away from what you're able to give. You're actually raising it because you're raising the love within yourself. So you're going to be able to show up for your people in a much more profound way without neglecting yourself. So it really is worth the journey. Please sign up for the newsletter or book a call. It is totally on me because we really just want to help you set yourself free.
Yeah, even if you're just a part of the community, right? We're all here supporting each other, and there's no necessarily like any kind of commitment that you need to make to one-on-one coaching. I mean, we are here to spread the message, to create that vibe, to make you feel safe to be who you authentically are. So come join us. We're your tribe.
Amen, sister. Thank you, as always, for ping ponging around with me and enjoying a beautiful episode. I hope you guys tracked with us. I know we were a little bit aloof today, but it was a fun journey. And I know I'm very grateful for you and for the audience. And I hope you guys have a lovely week.
So grateful for you. Thank you so much for having me on again. That was a lot of fun.
Toodles. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of The Challenges of Change. If you're ready to stop stressing and reclaim your sense of worth, be sure to visit my website at www.changebychallenge.com. There, you'll find loads of resources, blog posts, and information on how to work with me, Laura, as your personal mindset coach. Remember, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Don't let burnout or any other obstacle hold you back from living your best life. Take the first steps towards positive transformation today. Thank you again for listening. Stay confident, stay inspired, and embrace the challenges of change. Until next time.